Mufassil, I saw your video on Facebook, and it intrigued me as a non-Muslim to see you being so outspoken. And it intrigued me that much that, as you know, I got in touch with you, and we had quite a few conversations online.
Yeah.
And then you invited me to come over to Belfast to meet up with you. I mean, unfortunately, we're meeting up in this hospital. But how are you feeling at the moment? Are you?
Well, I'm awaiting an operation, open heart surgery, but the doctors are saying whether having a ring in there, it might be a better option for the time being, because I have several other health complications. So I'm not feeling great as I should be, but I'm okay.
So tell me why you actually made that video. What was going through your mind, and your thoughts on those beliefs and opinions that you had, and how you feel that they can be developed and taken on board by other people.
I see. So you're probably referring to the F video.
The infamous one,
in France.
The one that pretty much went viral.
Yes. I have quite a few other viral videos, but those are in other languages, especially I'm outspoken in Bengali more than I'm probably in English. But nowadays I thought that it's about time that we should address the main problem that is creeping into the country which I chose to live in, which is in England. Because I'm a British citizen now, I'm a migrant, and there were several reasons why I chose Britain to be my home. And the top of the list, which made me choose Britain, was the freedom of speech, where I can exercise that right without any fear. But I think that right is being challenged now, and they're being challenged because of the fact that there are migrants who do not agree with me, and they want to change the ways probably British society or the European society are run, and I think that's wrong. I believe that's to be very wrong, and that's even more wrong, if you want to say it, because they're using it in the name of my religion. I'm a devout Muslim. I believe in Allah. I'm not an atheist. I'm not an agnostic. I'm not a Christian. I'm not a Jew. But I'm a Muslim. And I believe that whatever they're trying to impose on the British society or the European at large, or Europe at large, in the name of Islam, is not Islam at all. I'm not apologetic. I'm not going to, I'm not going to talk about whether they have any justification behind carrying it, any political justification whatsoever. But there is no theological or spiritual Islamic sanction behind what they want to preach or establish. Because I think they are definitely wrong-headed, and they're wrong. And they're wrong to the extent of we can call them criminals. They should be brought to justice, definitely, and they should be stopped. And being Muslims, we have the primary duty to do it by any means necessary. And the least we can do is start condemning it with harsher words, with reason, logic. And the mainstream community should stand by people like me.
Do you feel that they actually are, though, the mainstream Muslim community? Do they share your beliefs?
No, they don't. Most of the mainstream community do not share my belief in a way I pursue. Yes, they would say that they condemn terrorism, they condemn any kind of atrocity in the name of Islam, but we hear of that more when they come to Europe. We do not see of it more from the Muslim world, so outspoken. They do say it, like leaders will say, yes, we condemn terrorism, we condemn this, we condemn that. But why don't you condemn the killers? Why don't you say openly that more, a few are coming up, very handful, but why don't you take up the challenge of saying that this is evil and how it is against Islam? You say it's against Islam, done and dusted. You give some examples of Prophet, what he did and what he said. But what exactly went wrong? Are they carrying these atrocities which are being carried out? Are they really, there are any reasons in Islam to really accept that there is justification in Islam itself to carry out these atrocities? I will say yes. In Islamic theology itself, things went wrong. And if we cannot be hypocritical about it, we have to accept it. There are theological reformations necessary.
So what actually went wrong then?
There are several things went wrong. First of all, if you read the very first chapter of the Quran, you will see there is an Arabic verse there. It says, "Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in." That means in God, in Allah, we look for any kind of help and for showing us the way, and we do not seek assistance from anybody else. But Muslims of the modern world don't do that. Most of them, we don't do that. Why and how? We don't do that because we have given too much allegiance to human work in the name of Sharia, beginning with hadiths, ending with interpretations of the Quran, which have taken Muslims away from the spirit of Quran.
See, for myself, being a non-Muslim, when I read the word Sharia, I automatically have images of people getting stoned to death, homosexuals being thrown off buildings, all of the horrific things that happen to criminals and to people that have been criminalised for their beliefs and their ways of life. But I mean, Sharia isn't just about basically killing people, is it? It's
well, if you gave me a couple of examples. One is stoning and for belief, or even homosexuals being stoned. First of all, we have to understand what Muslims believe in. First of all, we believe that Quran is the only divine revelation. Only divine revelation. No if, no but, no proviso, nothing. Only divine revelation. Because the Quran itself claims to be. And also the protection, preservation of the Quran is taken up by God Himself. So the preservation of the Quran lies with God. It's only divine revelation. We accept it's not man-made. There's no human touch in it, in the way of how the verses should be coming, words, even the words. The very Quran says about Bible, is corrupt because human touch were there, and I don't think Christianity denies that to some extent. So if that's the main reason to even deny or set aside all the other revelations, even God claims that, like for example, Bible is accepted to be God's revelation in Islam, but we are still ordered not to follow it because there are human works in it. But at the same time, then that means that to get our spirituality right, we must not accept anything else, any other book to be divine or binding on us.
Any other book than the Quran?
Any other book than the Quran. Well, there is a need for following the Prophet. There are instructions in the Quran that you should follow the Prophet. And there are instructions that we should accept God's words to be true, 100%. But the Quran itself says that Allah perfected the religion with the ending of the Quran, with the final revelations. He perfected the religion and made Islam as our religion. He perfected it and completed His blessings to us. So it is also, the another name of Quran is Furqan, that means divider between right and wrong. So the main purpose of any law is to ban something, some deeds, some works which laws forbid some things to do. Other than that, everything is valid. So the Quran is the only book that can claim to be doing that according to Islamic theology. Period. Now, the question comes whether there is any need for explanation of the Quran. What does the hadiths do? What did the Prophet do? He's a living Quran in a way. So what did he do? How do we know? And all that. Is there necessity for it? Yes, there are necessities to understand the Quran and what the Prophet did. There are necessities for that. But to what extent? To what extent we can find out what the Prophet did? How much can we do about it? We can do as much as any historian would be able to do. Doesn't matter how much value, respect you give to that historian, still he's an historian. He's a human being. He's not a prophet. So he's prone to making mistakes, errors. And I don't believe any of the great Islamic thinkers, collectors of the hadiths, anybody claimed to be flawless. But still we are taking some of the hadiths to be flawless. Number one. Again, we have to understand that not everything what Muhammad did is about him are to be followed. Why? Because they were not sunnah. For example, sunnah means something we have to follow. But he was an example for his time as well, for the people to follow. Because there were many things Muhammad used to do, and his followers would be a bit hesitant doing it. And Allah's revelation would come that you have to follow the Prophet. So those instructions were for his time as well, for his people as well. So he did things, said things, ordered things which are circumstantial as well, for his time as well, because he was a ruler as well, he was a leader, he was a political thinker and all that, all in one. So above all, he was a human being. A prophet in Islam is nothing more than a human being, but he's the chosen one to deliver the message. So he delivered the message. But at the same time, during his life, Prophet Muhammad also did not encourage writing down the hadiths or his sayings, because there was a possibility of hadiths and Quranic verses getting mixed up. You're not talking about 21st century where you have the computer and all that system. You didn't have that then. There are a very handful number of people who could read and write as well. But they were memorizing as much as possible. Nevertheless, when Muhammad was gone, the people started questioning that what did that verse mean?
That verse in the Quran.
Yeah, certain verses. They were a bit confused because people who were living during Muhammad's time were dying out. Because people who saw Muhammad in person, they would know what would Muhammad do. Why was that verse? Amazingly, there was no tafsir or interpretation of the Quran during Muhammad's time. None of his companions would do that, or give his own understanding about what it is, what's going on, what did the verse mean and all that. Because that's what we call tafsir. Because at the best they would give the meaning of the word. What did the word stand for? That's it. But there arose a need for hadiths, because they wanted to know what did the Prophet do at that moment. What was he doing when that verse came? So these were all scattered in the Muslim world, like in hearsay, or parables, or known, memorized things handed down over generations, what we call seerah, like a chain of narrators.
Yeah.
At the same time, none of those narrators, doesn't matter how much emphasis you put on their memory, your sincerity, no question about sincerity, whatever you say, humans, right? There were deeds which Muhammad did during his lifetime, which were for his time, for his circumstance, which we can never be 100% sure of. Never be. Impossible. We cannot be sure about what Charles Dickens did during his lifetime. It's impossible. But I do applaud the fact that it was a fantastic thing to do, but all the hadith collectors accepted that we tried our best. If you find anything better, throw it. Even they said, the first hadith collection was 200 years after Muhammad was gone. 200 years after Muhammad was gone. The first interpretation, tafsir of the Quran, came soon after Imam Bukhari, Talibani, that's Muhammad Talibani. That's the first interpretation of the Quran. Came almost 250 years after Muhammad. You see the problem? Hadith collectors came. They were very difficult to find out which was for his circumstance, which was for his time, which was his direct instruction. Even if we say that we know what were his direct instruction to do, at the same time we are not sure what was the circumstance, 100%. That's a problem. Again, hadith, no prophet can give you universal laws or laws which should be beyond time. Only Quran can do that. No question. If any Muslim can say that Prophet can give you that sort of, doesn't matter, Prophet was instructed by Allah, he never did anything without Allah's command on that. But we have to still accept that things he did for his time things he did, he was subject to his time. He was a prophet, he was a human being, subject to his society, time, weather, natural need and all that. So also we have to accept that he was the man who was a human being, not in a position to give laws for human beings. Only God can do that, and he did it in Quran. And what his duty was to implement it in his life. Anything that has a basis in Quran, good examples in Hadith, we can correlate that and we can say that makes sense. And all the Muslim scholars can sit down together and like Hadith collectors, all the Hadiths would match 90% on that same issue. We can accept that as from a historic point of view. But still we should not lose the liberty of thinking for my own faith. Because if we do that, then I am giving the responsibility of my heart, my judgment to another human being. And we must not do that in Islamic theology. So we have given that up. We Muslims have almost given that up. We don't understand that Hadith cannot give any new law. The examples that you gave me, stoning, killing somebody who left Islam, I can assure you, there's not a single instruction in the Quran to carry out punishments against homosexuals. There's not a single example.
So where did these punishments come from then?
That's the thing. But there are condemnation that if you carry it out as a practice, you will be punished hereafter. But at the same time, there are exceptions. For example, if somebody, I'm coming to your question, but for example, somebody who has no mental balance, you can't expect him to pray 5 times. Somebody who doesn't have a limb, you can't expect him to standing when praying. A woman who is heavily pregnant, God didn't say they have to fast during Ramadan. All the exceptions are there, So from the light of Hadith, we can see exact exceptions, but we cannot impose laws. Prophet ﷺ, peace be upon him, was not authorized to say, okay, Quran said 5 times, I will add you 1 extra mandatory, 6 times. He was not authorized to do that. He prayed extra prayers. We follow that. That's good if you do. But mandatory? No. But why are you taking his example where some of his time people killed somebody who was an apostate? That might have been a circumstance which we don't know what happened then. Was it a spy? Was he doing something immoral in the society, creating trouble? We don't know. But that cannot be a law based on Hadith. This is evil to do that. Why is it evil? Because you're carrying out, believing is an instruction from Allah. Answer is hell no. Hell no. Then comes when all these hadiths were a bit confusing, starting with Imam Bukhari, there was a need to understand the hadith even. Then came the interpreters of the Quran. You see the need? Talbiri, I told you, Muhammad Talbiri, he was the first interpreter of Quran, about 9th century. After him, there were other commentaries. Commentaries started. There were any loss. What is Sharia? Is it Hadith as well? Sunnah as well? Which Sunnah we take, which we do not accept, which is perfect, which is not, which is Quranic instruction, what does Quran mean, and all that. There were persecution of free thinkers in Islamic world. Can't deny that. In the 9th and 10th century and up to the 13th century, if you take it as a golden time for Islam, all the Muslims will say, oh, there were great golden times of Islam. Why was it golden? It's not because science flourished, philosophy flourished, finance flourished, and all that. What also flourished was philosophy. When Dante Alighieri, the Italian poet, who wrote Divine Comedy, mocked the Prophet in his writing, who was a famous poet during his time, even now he's revered. He mocked the Prophet about his ascending to heaven and all that, his experience in heaven during his lifetime, the journey to heaven, that's what we call Miraj. He mocked the Prophet. How did the Muslim philosophers respond? Did they mock back? During the golden time, when Muslims are very powerful in every aspect? when the Europe was in dark ages? No. They could have, carry out a death threat against Dante Alighieri. They did not. They responded back by showing love instead. Like Jalaluddin Rumi, Sufi, Amar Khayyam. They said universal love, humanity. We can be great Muslims, at the same time we can serve the purpose of humanity, because human brotherhood. But the Christian community responded again by calling the Muslims infidels, with the backing of the Vatican. Then Muslims obviously started calling them kafirs more. You see, the hate begets hate. So, surprisingly, the Muslim rulers wanted to have a control, grip of the society, because everybody was interpreting Islam in their own ways. So they didn't know how to rule in the name of God. The caliphs, because the Quran says follow the caliph until he remains on God's words. He follows God's instructions. We have to follow the caliph. Like in any country, we have to follow the law of the land. We have to follow the rules of the country, as long as that government doesn't become a despot in the same way.
Yeah.
But to make sure that the caliphs can, in many ways, brainwash the people into believing, hey, I'm ruling your country in the name of Allah, you better behave. I don't give a damn about your way of interpretation of Quran. You listen to what I say to the interpretation of Quran. To do that, they started engaging institutionalized theocracy, institutionalized bureaucracy, institutionalized Islamic scholars in Baghdad and other parts of the world. And they will finance it massively. Science, philosophy and all that, which is good, but at the same time, theology. Why? So that their images are hyped up in the Muslim world. Scholars or learners around the world would flock together and learn theology from them. These great scholars are sponsored by the government in Baghdad and other parts of the Muslim world, and they will carry out this message in different parts of the Muslim world. Like the same way the Salafis are doing, the Wahhabis are doing in the modern times, sanctioned by the Saudi Arabian government, king. Their way of interpretation of Islam. You see the relation?
Yeah.
So, these caliphs would then engage these scholars to persecute the freethinkers, including the Mutazilas. Well, some scholars may say Mutazilas had problems. Mutazilas had rational minds, So, Mutazilas were wrong. Okay, but that didn't give you the right to persecute them. That didn't give you the right to persecute them, to chain them, to put them behind the bar. No. Because you think that's heresy, I don't think. I'm not going to impose on you, that's fine. As long as I do not impose my thinking on you, my philosophy on you, in an annoying manner, or even, put down through your gullet, I'm fine. But they would not accept it. They were seriously persecuted. Greatest philosophers, Sufis, like Jalaluddin Rumi, was persecuted in his own country. Omar Khayyam could not even publish a single poetry during his lifetime. They were all persecuted. Freethinkers were persecuted into believing one hardline way of Islamic theology, where life would become almost like in the army, which priority would be given which shoe to wear first, left or right. Priority would be given which hand to use first while eating. Although there are Quranic instructions and all that, I accept that. But more priority should be given to the spirit, which was lost. Too much into rituals, too much into formalities, and people who would not agree will be persecuted, seriously persecuted. They will be killed even. They will be driven out from their country. Why? Because the aesthetic mind, this free mind, to be nourished, you need a few more things. For example, from the hadiths I understand, being a PhD student in Sharia, as someone who has been engaged in this for 30 years, I can tell you, I can memorize and tell you verses after verses of the Quran like a parrot, with all respect to the people who memorize. or give you quotation of the hadiths. But I don't really understand. I can't really correlate one another. What's the purpose? Anybody can memorize. If anybody memorizes and simply thinks he's going to heaven, then all the so-called institutionalized clergy would go to heaven first. God didn't say that. There was no institutionalized system of clergy during Muhammad's time. There's no recognition of mufti, imam, and institutionalized imam and all that during Muhammad's time. No mufti, no title Maulana and all that. There's no such thing. Now they have taken over the interpretation, the duty, sole responsibility of interpreting the Quran. If anybody says, sorry, mufti, you are wrong, we'll say, do you have an academic backing to say you have more authority than I do? My question would be, who the hell gave you that right that you know more than I do? Who gave you that? Don't you believe that Quran said that we should pray to God for wisdom? Rabbi Jadni ilma. So how do you know that you have been given that wisdom? Who gave you the authority to have more authority on the people than I do? On the other hand, people who were not institutionalized, academics and all that, they served Islam better. Because they had the knowledge of the world. Now you don't. You think just reading Hadith and Quran, you have done your debate. And that has made you a religious fascist.
See, the thing for me, just being able to read off something parrot fashion from memory doesn't mean that you've understood the message behind that particular paragraph.
Exactly. That's what is happening now. So, the recent atrocity, the cartoon thing.
Charlie Hebdo, yeah.
Yes, which is more insulting. Somebody drawing a cartoon of the Prophet, mocked, because he was mocked during his time. He was stoned in Taif. He said, Allah forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. When the angel said, tell us, give us permission, we'll turn the whole city upside down. He said, no. So is it a Jekyll and Hyde thing? Two characters in one man? Doesn't make sense. So even if, I'm not in the support of mocking anyone. I don't think that's purpose service. I think that Charlie Hebdo, they did mistakes. They shouldn't have made, insulted. It's an insult to insult a character who is being revered by, religiously. You can criticize religion in every way. I don't think, it's serving purpose. Even if they have the right to do it, they did it. And killing those people for that in the name of my Prophet, who would not agree to it, who insulted my Prophet more? The one who killed or the one who got killed? You are talking about billions and trillions of stars. Sun is like a dust, not even a dust in the universe. And of that dust, even another dust is this Earth, planet Earth. And of that planet Earth, I am just another dust. And that insignificant dust made a cartoon of a prophet who was chosen by the one who created the universe. Do you think God gives a damn about that cartoon? Or is it going to change anything to him? No. If a God is so worried about being insulted by dust, wow, I have worries for this God. I do, because that's not my God. So, if you see, in response to Dante Alighieri, as I was saying earlier, Rumi read love poetry. Because eventually human soul accepts what is true. Love, peace. Hatred doesn't sustain. It will not sustain. And if you think that making a cartoon will help 1.8 billion Muslims to say, what the fuck? I'm following a religion which is so dirty, and they will just drop everything and give up their religion. Nonsense. It's not going to work. It's not going to work for the non-believers. It's not going to work for the believers. But why did they carry out that killing? They carried out the killing on the basis of hadiths, which has no basis in the Quran itself. There's no such instruction in the Quran.
Because the Quran was divine and it was finished.
Yes, finished. But at the same time, if you don't understand, for example, Quran will say, pray 5 times. But how to pray? We don't know. You follow the hadith, and the hadith collectors have no confusion on that. 99% they are almost the same way how to pray. That's fine.
So it's more of an instruction book for people that probably don't read,
Exactly. But again, you see one thing. which is very much prevalent. If I ask you, Sean, what are the best ways to nourish your cultural mind? What would you say? What are the things that nourishes your cultural mind?
Well, for me, it's I like to question things, to ask why things are taking place.
Yes.
I like to interpret things in my own way. I don't want to have somebody else's opinions foisted upon me and tell me how to believe and how to think.
Yes.
That for me, because as you know, I create stuff. To actually be told you've got to do it in this certain specific way, that would limit my creativity. It would limit my development, and it would mean that I didn't create anything. And if you turn that into something more massive, if you're restricting people's ability to think for themselves, then nothing's ever going to change, and there's going to be no new inventions, and life will just stagnate. That's the way I think.
Can you imagine a life in the armed forces all the time, 24/7? You are in the army. Can you imagine a life like that?
I'd like not to imagine a life.
Horrible life it can be. And if your religion demands that, that's even worse. Nowadays, in the modern world, most of the Muslim scholars, if not all, say music is haram in Islam. Only playing the daft, the daft is a skin-made drum. Only that is allowed. And I don't think that they don't even know the spirit behind why daft was allowed by the Prophet. They don't even care for the spirit. They said daft, like one-eyed ass. Sorry for my French. So, music is not appreciated in any form, even mild music. It's don't do it. So that is allowed, the drum is allowed, mild guitar is not allowed. What's wrong? God doesn't like the string? What is it? Then poetry. They will not say, poetry. They will say painting. My son is a painting. Say that to a mufti. My son is a painter. Painter? The first thing that will strike, is he painting man? Or is he drawing human beings? That's the first thing that will strike his head. Well, okay, you don't like poetry, you don't like philosophy? No. Philosophers are all atheists. Nonsense. When the greatest of Muslim philosophers helped Europe to flourish. So you don't have any value for philosophy. That's why Muslim world at the present are lacking philosophers. There's theologians, teachers, scholars, not philosophers.
For me, that could demonstrate why the perception in the Western world is that a lot of Muslim countries are very backward in comparison to, say, the UK or.
Well, when it come to backwardness, I would rather say that instead of using that backward, I would rather say they are not opening themselves out for change. That's why I say change.
Yeah.
Because if you see the famous poet, German poet, Goethe once wrote to the Eastern philosophers, Eastern poets, that show us the way, because our people are becoming so much material in their living. Show us the spiritual way, because Asia and Africa and all that are still more into spirituality. There were still Sufis there. There were still people with mysticism there. Show us the way. We don't want to be living so much material life. And then there was another famous Pakistani national poet, Allama Iqbal. He responded back with some ways to how to nourish your spirituality. That's how we should take it forward. Nowadays, if I'm not questioning there's no spirit. There is spirit, but the spirituality needs to be revived. We don't have to follow the materialistic living of the West, but we should take the reasonable mind of the West, and the West should take the spirituality of the East. And can you imagine a world, spirituality from the East, true spirit, not like disgusting acts and carrying out honor killing, not that kind of spirituality. Spirituality where you see people have nothing but still will offer you something from his home to eat. Because that's what I've seen in Bangladesh. I should challenge, if you go to any village in Bangladesh, say you are a wayfarer and say I'm hungry, they will share your last food with you. That is spirituality. That is still there in the East. So they can share that, pass it on to Europe, where they are living lavish lives, throwing away food. At the same time, take East can take the reasonable mind from the West, make it a better world. Because the Quran says that Rabbul Mashriqain, Rabbul Maghribain, Fabi'ayna Rabbikum Attika Sivan. That means he's the Lord of the East and the West. So if you say Boko Haram, that means West is haram. Who are you condemning?
Well, if Allah says that East and West,
yes, it's lost. So you are condemning the whole West. Why? God didn't create the West with love. Do you see the rivers bitter? Water is bitter here. Do you not see flowers blooming here? You don't find daffodil in the East. You find daffodils here. Don't you appreciate your Lord? Don't you appreciate when you see the lovely children? Muhammad left the world a better place than the chaos he was in. He had to uproot the evil. He was ruthless about uprooting the evil. But he was also the kindest man we know. Examples. A leader, that's a leadership quality. We Muslims need to be more vocal and ruthless about facing the evil within us. That's what we're doing. Now, why they're not doing? Why the Muslim scholars are not talking out? Because they are not speaking out because primarily they're scared. Why are they scared? Because they might be killed in their own countries if they start talking the way I'm talking. It's number one, by their own people. Secondly, they don't want to jeopardize their reputation and respect in the society. Like I am worldwide known among the Bangladeshi people. But I am taking huge risk talking to you like this. Because you know why? Because I'm revered for my religiosity. They revere me because I love Islam. They know it's established. And I can give my life for my faith. I will not give up my faith. But I chose my faith out of my free will, thinking about all the pros and cons. You name me, I was tolerant enough to listen to all arguments against it, good or bad. But at the same time, it was my chosen right, and I'm taking it to the people who need to know where Islam went wrong in theology. I'm taking huge risk, but I know there are people like me who think the way I'm thinking, who are the intelligentsia of the Muslim people community. They are the people who can change it. Not the people off the street who is dancing and yelling, kill them. What about people who were shouting about kill Salman Rushdie, burn Salman Rushdie's book? Where are they now? Back home. Thousands of them, millions of them. Where are the books of Salman Rushdie? In all the libraries of the world. Don't you think it would have been a better response if Salman Rushdie was called for a debate? Or write a book even? In response? A response like Al-Azhar University in Cairo, in Egypt. World famous university in the Muslim world. They could have published a response, united response. A response to Salman Rushdie from Islam. Then the scholars, researchers like me, would have an option of listen to both. Now, whenever we want to search for a response, we find sporadic responses. We have to do our own nick and pickle and find and all that. But we don't have immediate response from the Muslim world. Who is weaker here?
Generally, my perception is the response of the Muslim world was to suggest that we should kill Salman Rushdie for his blasphemy.
Again, where is the example in Islam for that? In Quran?
It's a similar sort of thing, I suppose, to the Charlie Hebdo thing, because it's insulting your God, insulting your Prophet, and
again, if you there will be people who are arguing some verses in the Quran. They say, like example, very common one. You can handful of a few. Like most of the time, they will pick on Surah number 9 or say, find them, kill them, whatever you find them, blah blah blah. But what do you do during war? If you find an American soldier finds a Taliban to be his own brother, who's about to shoot at him, what is he going to do? Kiss his ass? So those are the just interpretations we can use from the hadiths,
but they're being used They're being used in the wrong context.
Yes, to fend off, so that we can understand what the Quran message meant. But that responsibility is confined to Quran. Now you have taken the responsibility of justifying Quran, hadith, tafsir, interpretation. whatever my imam, my caliph, my spiritual leader is telling. So my thought pattern is scattered. I'm having to defend so many things. I don't know what my religion stands for. So my religion has been snatched from Allah by the people. So do we, going back to Surah number 1, do we still believe that Allah to you we seek the way? Now if they said they were all spiritually guided people, what does the Bible stand for Christians? Why do they believe in that? Because they say the Bible and the people who wrote the Bible, they were inspired by the Holy Ghost, right? That's why they think it's flawless. So when I tell the Muslims that, okay, so you are saying those people who collected hadith and all that, they're almost flawless because they're closer to the Prophet's time, number one. Secondly, they were blessed. Thirdly, they were correct scholars. Does it sound familiar in the Bible collection? Holy Spirit, guided by the Holy Spirit. If God says, give up my book, forget hadith, my book. Bible is God's book. We believe in Muslims, eh? Torah, my book, give it up. Because there's people's work in it. Give it up. Forget about taking nick and picking. Give it up. Totally. Now if I apply it to the hadiths, they will kill me. I'm saying, I value the hadiths as much with my life. But to the extent of interpreting the Quran and not giving any new law. And to the extent that it's a historic work by humans only. It's a human work.
It's not a divine piece of work.
Definitely. To believe that it's divine, unacceptable. It's not an unacceptable sin. You see everything in hadith that you want to follow it now. If you want to follow it like binding, everything, regardless. Because they're confused which one is for his time, which one is not for his time. Confused. We need theological understanding about hadith. What's stopping us? Why can't we sit down with all this Bukhari, Muslim, Tirmidhi, Nasai, Abu Dawud, Ibn Majah, sit down and say, this is probably for his time. Why can't we all unite together and say, Muslims, scholars' findings about the collection of hadith? Which one is which? What's stopping you to rearrange the hadiths according to which one to be followed as mandatory, which are not, about commentaries, scholars. We have the opportunity now. 21st century, what's stopping us? What is stopping us? Nothing.
Some kind of reformation, you mean?
100%. 100%. Otherwise, you will see Islam is being outdated. Very much so. It is. You are trying to impose the laws of 1400 years ago now in the modern society. Absurd. You can put the spirituality, which Quran guides you. Laws. You will not find any law in the Quran. That's what I believe as a Muslim. Which will stop you living a 21st century life. But the hadith will. There are several hadiths that will stop you. That will stop you. This is the problem. Like halal butchery thing.
Explain to me what halal meat is.
Well, first of all, there is some food guidance in the Quran that you can eat everything, and you cannot make haram, that is not permissible, what Allah has made permissible. That's the first big condition. You cannot make anything. The term haram is being used very loosely nowadays by Muslims, very loosely, but only under any kind of interpretation. We must be careful to use the word haram. But Allah said that nobody can make what Allah made permissible. There are some restrictions in food dietary. For example, I cannot eat swine meat. Why? I don't want to know why. Because there are some things in God's words. He said, don't eat it, I will not eat it. Simple. Some scholars will argue that Muslim scholars say this is not hygienic and all that. I said, I'm sorry, that's not my way. He's not a chosen elected God. He said, don't eat it. What the heck? There are so many people. Rather show mercy to the pigs. Don't eat them. Right? Don't eat them. He said, it's my animal. I created it. I tell you not to eat. Don't eat. Done for. But God also said in Surah Ma'idah that you do not eat any animal flesh which is killed in the name of any other God other than Allah. Now, most of the Muslims will go, oh yes, you cannot eat KFC. So my question is, 99% of the people of the slaughterhouses there do not take any God's name to slaughter chickens, right? So why can't I eat that? There's no God's name taken. There was no God's name taken.
See, I mean, that can be interpreted in two different ways in that particular passage.
Yes.
You can't eat meat that's been blessed in the name of any god other than Allah.
Yeah.
But then it can also be interpreted to say that, well, all meat is blessed in the name of a god, so you have to make sure that the meat that you eat has been blessed in the name of Allah. And that's the way that halal meat has come about.
The halal meat came about is the way that they don't understand the difference. They said, well, then that means all the animals must be killed in Allah's name first, then we can eat it. No, the verse doesn't say that. He said, as long as a God's name was taken, if was taken, it should be on Allah's name. Number one. Secondly, there is a verse like where do not eat any meat without taking God's name. So do not start any journey without taking God's name. So how do you start God's name? Journey in God's name. Say, thankful Allah, thank you for mercy. I am starting this journey. Please bless me. God's name. So if I have an animal meat, I say, this animal gave his life so that I could live. Right? Thank you to Allah for allowing me to eat his meat. And eat it. So why the hell do you have to slaughter it in his name and then eat it? Doesn't make sense. But as a Muslim, if I have the responsibility of slaughtering, then I will slaughter it in Islamic way. You know, like slaughtering in the throat and let the blood flow and all that. But if I was not given the responsibility, and then if I don't even know where the meat came from, some people just say, how can you be sure that that no animal's name, no God's name was taken? What if like the Jewish God's name was taken, or the Hindu God's name was taken for KFC slaughtering? I would say that's not the general situation here, in England at least. Well, if you are living in India, some parts of India, or Nepal, some parts of Nepal, you may find that some animals are being killed in God's name. And if you have a chance of believing that this is prevalent, like for example, in Israel, they eat kosher meat, like God's name. Can we eat that? The question is, it was taken by a Jewish man in God's name. Was it sacrificed in God's name? The God Allah? Answer is yes. How? Because they are the people of the book. And Jewish people believe in one God, I believe in one God. What the problem is? You know? Then again, what exactly was meant that, for example, there are very many worshippers, for example, in Hinduism. They will call it boli, you know, killing an animal, pouring its blood on the idol, and then, you know, eating it, or most of the time they throw it away. That animal is not allowed for us to eat for religious purposes. 750 years rule of Muslim in Europe. You can show me a single halal restaurant example, butcher shop. Muslims went to Africa for trades, hundreds of years around the globe. You cannot show me a single historic evidence where historians are writing, Muslims visited our country, they never ate meat with us. Because this is a very important thing. You know, if you're writing history about me, even you say, I met Mufassil, he would not eat any other animal with me, he would not eat KFC with me, you know, and there's no such thing, no example of such. And also, there was no example that they were carrying their own goats and camels, or their own way they slaughtered in their houses, or they were even vegetarian, having no other way. Muslims were coming to Europe for hundreds of years. Scholars, there's not a single example of such. But this has become a business. This halal shops.
It is very much a business now.
It's a business. Nowadays you have halal soap. In Bangladesh they have built up a halal 5-star hotel, believe it or not. Halal 5-star hotel. What next? Halal bird? Halal water? What the hell? This is segregating people. And some people, they will carry their national culture when they are migrating to countries like UK. I have all the respect. You have the right to pursue your culture because that's how tolerant Britain is. But my question is, why do you carry it? If you carry it because you just love the culture, that's different. But you pass it on to your children. Why do you pass it on to your children? Because in the back of your mind, somehow, you believe that has something to do with religion. For example, the Bengalis of Bangladesh and the Bengalis of India are different as far as religion is concerned. Most of the Muslims in people in Bangladesh are Muslims. Most of the Bengalis in Indian part of Bengal are Hindus. So religion played a role. As far as the clothing, we are a bit more cautious about revealing female body and eating our dietary. It's a bit different. So even if we speak the same language almost, when you see another Bengali man, we'll have subtle differences because religion played a role. So when we will come to this country, we'll believe wearing that type of clothes will make sure that I do not get mixed up with the Christians. Because I was always conscious about this when I was in Bangladesh. Hindus wear dhutis, Muslims wear lungis. And they will say, I don't want to wear dhuti, I don't want to wear lungi, because it reveals, it's something to do with Hinduism. I don't want to wear it. So in the back of your mind, you are always conscious about your Muslim identity. And because you molded your culture, which although that lungi has, or the clothing men wear, have nothing to do with Islam. But you will be conscious to make sure you wear that in Bangladesh. Don't wear dhuti, because something to do with the Hindu people following that. Because it's part of their knees are shown and all that. So you are very conscious about not doing it, right? So you still wear the lungi here, where you could wear pajamas. Because you're used to it. Okay, that's fine, you're used to it. You do not have to pass it on to your children. Let them become British.
Let them make up their own mind.
Or let them be British. Why do you have to pass on your culture? Knowingly, your children are under massive pressure. First of all, for example, my child, he will have to learn Bengali at home to speak to my wife. They will have to go to school, and obviously that's their first language now, English. They will speak English. So they have to be Bengali at home, English outside. They will have to learn English, learn Bengali. Well, learning language is good, but not like in this way. And then you will have to act British outside. You have to act Bangladeshi at home. Yeah. So you have to be Muslim. When most of the friends are enjoying nativity scene, you're seeing Christmas, you kind of say, oh, I love Christmas. Forget about the religiosity of it. I love it. Beautiful timing, humanity, brotherhood. Say hello, Merry Christmas. You can't do it because you will become a Christian, for heaven's sake. At the same time, you cannot be going with the community, mainstream, where 99% of them are enjoying it. Father Christmas, Santa Claus.
Yeah.
Does it have anything to do with Christian belief?
Has nothing at all to do with Christianity, really. That's a very deep question anyway, but I think most Britons who celebrate Christmas basically don't go to church anyway, so they're not religious. They might claim to believe in God, but at the end of the day, on Christmas Day, they've bought presents for their kids, and they're getting great delight out of seeing them open their presents. That is all Christmas is about now.
Well, it has a lot to do with commercial things as well, but still, it's a beautiful time, But if an Islamic scholar is seen to be standing next to a Father Christmas with his grandson on the knee of Santa Claus, people will go mad. I say, why? And I will say, why not? So why shouldn't my child go along with the main flow? He's a Muslim. If he's a Muslim, who's going to snatch it? Who's going to take my heart? Like me, I believe in Allah, I believe in Quran to be wholly true. And why can't I be your best friend, you being an atheist? Why not? That's what segregation is. I'm killing my son's liberty, right to a beautiful life, because I was not brought up, I was not born here. I had the liberty of going with the main flow in my country, because most of them were Muslims. We celebrated Eid and everything together. Why can't my child celebrate that? When my son is coming at home with his friends, the first thing the friends will be struck at, oh, he's different. Okay, that's fine. I have some differences, but at the same time, I should be able to accommodate mainstream culture so that his friends do not take him as totally different.
Yeah.
Because if he's brought up in a way, I'm totally different, his friends will always treat him as totally different, without knowing or unknowing, willingly or unwillingly, and that will backfire, because my children will say, oh my God, they never accept me. Because yeah, my family, my circumstances are telling them not to accept me. It's telling me every second I'm different. I can have a girlfriend. And then what's going to happen then? That's going to backfire. And my child will grow up as a freak in belief. He will say, I'm not accepted here. I'm not. This is not my society. I need to get out. I'm suffocating. Where are people who will accept me wearing this kind of clothes, speaking this kind of language? Where? Afghanistan. You see the problem? And they will want, because they still deep down, they love England, deep down.
They wouldn't be here if they didn't, to be honest.
Yes, but they love Afghanistan. In their head, they are Afghanistan. But they will, for the hidden love they have for Britain, what they will want? They will want Afghanistan to come to Britain.
But then the thing is that this is why I can't comprehend that whole kind of ideology where a young Muslim youth will actually live in this country and enjoy the freedoms that this country has to offer, and then will want to impose the laws of a country like Afghanistan in this country, which will then take away the freedoms that he's got.
I blame the parents for that, because you know what is to be without freedom, like I do. Why do you want your children to go back to the countries you left? Why do you want to bring the suffocation what we left behind? I blame the parents more than I blame the kids. And finally, I would say, with all sincerity, there are double standards in foreign policy and all that. But we have governments, we have parliaments, we have the freedom of speech, we have the freedom of demonstration, association, expression. Why not exercise those? I don't believe for a second that I live in a country like Britain where I am stopped from preaching what I believe in. So if I don't have enough logic, reason, then I won't be able to deliver, get what I want anyway. So I don't believe a government can keep on showing the middle finger to most of the people what they believe to be right for long. Whenever you come with a situation, they're always saying, Mufassil, you are a sell-off. You have been bought by the Zionists, bought by the atheists, bought by the British government, MI5 and all that. That's why you are saying it. What have I got from all this? I'm brave enough to take the risk on my life. Can the British government say that, Mufassil, I give you $1 billion, but your life will always be under threat? Do you think that is something I can sell?
What exactly are you getting from the British government, from the Zionists and from the atheists? What have they actually given you? Have they given you a nice car and a nice house?
That's something that I think the British government can answer. But the thing is, I am feeling that British government are also failing to some extent. How? Because you see, whenever an atheist or somebody who hates Islam, anti-theist, or somebody who left Islam, Muslims do not give value much to those people anymore. That doesn't work. But when people like me sincerely believe in Islam, has already established themselves for preaching Islam, who are researchers in Islam, want to reform the society, British government could give a voice to us rather than giving voice to somebody like Janjan Chaudhry, who do not represent people like me most of the times. So why not listen to us? That's what British government. And also, British government and the Western government should make sure that people like me are safeguarded. Because our lives are always under threat. Massively. We are under threat.
Do you feel at the moment that your life's...
Oh yes. Oh yes, 100%. 100%. There are threats I get threats every day. Every day. And because people, they threat me because they cannot defeat me with reason and argument.
Because they have no,
they have no
counter-argument to anything that...
No way, no chance. And I don't have to be a grand mufti to defeat their arguments. That's the thing. And the way forward would be to make it a better place, because God's world is both east and west, as I said. So the way forward should be for Muslims to uproot this evil and take a lead in that. My home, I have to fix my home first. My community first. Don't be a hypocrite about this. Enough is enough. And if I have to be vulgar about it, fuck yes, I will be. Why will I be? Because the Prophet said that if you cannot stop something with your hand, evil being carried out, that doesn't mean I will enforce the law, but I will stop the break of it. You know? That's what is called stop it with your hand. A law of the land, recognized by the land, not in a foreign law. Even if it's Islamic, I have to make sure government approves of it where I live. If the government approves of it, I'm seeing it, a break of it, I will try as a civilian to stop it as much as I can. If I can't, then I will use the mouth, as the Prophet said. Stop it with the mouth. When I'm preaching, I will use the best of words. When I will be in the media and everything, I will use the best of words. But when I have to condemn the evil, there's nothing in Islam to stop me. And if saying fuck off helps, I will say it 10 times to get the message through. How much I hate, how much we hate evil. And we're not doing it. Because you know what? We are being parrots. We're not accepting the fact that we can condemn fuckers as fuckers. When I'm interviewing television, when I'm going to television, do you hear me saying these words? No. When I'm inviting someone to Islam, should I say, hey fucker, come and learn Islam? No. So if that helps me to stop, condemn, unitedly, do it.
For me, it shows... That first video that I saw of you showed that you was a human being rather than a Muslim. You was a human being who also happened to be a Muslim, but you was a human. But that was a human reaction. That anger and passion, that was what I would expect from any human who's condemning an atrocity.
Sure, you know my health situation. I am in intensive care. I'm in a room living for 10 days in a hospital, heart hospital, where people wouldn't be admitted and you cannot go home for 10 days if I didn't have a serious problem. I have a serious problem. And still I'm talking, you know why? Because I value my religion more than my life. I love my community more than my life. Taking a huge, still sitting on a bed, hospital bed, with a monitor saying my blood pressure is dropping every minute, because I want people of the world to have a better world. Humanity. Because if I what do I see? Even if you are an atheist, what do I see when I see you? I see God treated you with love.
And of course I don't believe that, but...
No, I see, that's what I see. I see somebody God created with love. Has a fairer skin than I do. You are blessed with that. I'm not saying it in a racist way. I'm saying it, you don't have to face racism that I do at times. In that way you are blessed. So I see love. If I love my brother, if I hit my brother, my dad would be angry. So why did you hit my son? So God Almighty, Father in heaven, created you and I slap you. Would you be happy?
No.
No. That is humanity. Because God said in the Quran that if you kill one innocent without any justification, you kill the whole of humanity. So, you know, Sean, that's what they don't see anymore. That's what Muslim scholars in the past, like Rumi, used to see. And it brings me to tears to see my Muslim brothers, sisters have drifted away so much from the Quran itself. Because Quran doesn't tell you to believe in miracles and then bring the faith. It says think, think, think. There's the only scripture in the whole world that tells you to think so many times. So that's the problem.
The interpretation now is that
Too much of thinking there.
there's not enough scope for free thinking in Islam.
That's what has happened. They don't let you free think anymore. So if I say, for example, myself, I can be someone greater than Imam Bukhari, Imam Ghazali. I can be greater. I have an opportunity. God might have chosen me to be a better reformative, or the needed, so much needed Imam of this era. Will I be committing any sin? Hell no. Do I have a possibility? Yes or yes. Because Muhammad said during his last sermon that take my message to the people who are not present here, because they might be understanding my message more than you people are doing. My final message is very simple. I'm not going to make it too complicated. Muslims, exercise your freedom of speech. Be more courageous, because you are known to be courageous people. If you love your faith more than you love your life, it's about time you show it. And the message to the non-Muslims, great minds, stand by us for the sake of humanity to survive.
Thanks for talking to me, Mufassil.
Thank you, my friend.